I would agree. I mean, a bad economy is good for storage, period. Like it forces the hand, and it's, you go back to the D's: death, divorce, downsize. Like unfortunately, these life circumstances bode well for the storage space. But I always tell people, I'm like, thankfully we have an asset class that can aid people in these times of need. Like, I'd rather someone not come to me when they need that, but I don't think people drive by a storage facility like, man, you know what? That's a really good looking storage facility. I want to spend my Saturday moving all the shit out of my house and put it there because that is such a good looking site. Like, no one looks forward to that process.
Welcome to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast. I'm Jason Balin from Hard Money Bankers, co-host Ian Horowitz at Equity Warehouse. If you're a return viewer, follower, listener, watcher, welcome back. Thanks so much for all the support. Certainly couldn't do it without you. As you guys know, we try to bring in guests that are active in the real estate investment community. Some of them are investment residential experts. Some of them are commercial experts. If you're a new listener, follower, welcome. I promise we'll keep this entertaining. I promise you'll probably learn something as well. So it'll be well worth your next 30 minutes. In a second, Ian's going to introduce John Lindsey from Lindsey Self-Storage Group. And maybe we'll even, sneak peek some of the deals that Ian and John are working on at the moment.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for this one. But guys, we go out there and we leverage our network. Everybody we know, all these guests we personally know, we go out, we ask them to come on and share. So the best compliment we can give them is by sharing the show. We don't care about the 5-star reviews and subscribes and all that other stuff. That's ego for us. We care about making sure this gets shared. And that's the best compliment that we can give our guests. So, enough about us on this beautiful spring day. I guess it's technically spring still. Why don't we just bring in John and let's get this thing started because there's a lot to cover here. What's up, brother?
What's up, man? How we doing today?
Just enjoying the beautiful weather, getting ready for another fun podcast, which I'm excited that you're on. Where are you hiding out at these days?
So up in Minneapolis right now, visiting the family up here. Nice break from the Florida heat, and we're enjoying every minute of it.
Yeah, man, that's good. I guess let's see if the Timberwolves do something. We have a little vested interest in that as well. But other than that, it's time to get going. I mean, let's just kick it off. Why don't you go ahead and introduce who you are and what you do?
Yeah, no, I appreciate y'all having me on. For those of you who've never heard my name or seen me before, my name is John Lindsey, co-founder and president of Lindsey Self-Storage Group. My family's been in the storage business since 1969. My father was a developer, started building sites in Dallas, Texas, and then continued on to North Carolina through the 90s and 2000s. I grew up pouring concrete, and in 2012, I said, Dad, I'm really tired of pouring concrete. I don't want to build sites anymore. So my brother and I went out and launched Lindsey Self-Storage Group. We do brokerage all over the U.S., Europe, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. We've done deals from Mexico and Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam, Marseille, France, Utrecht, Netherlands, to Weatherford, Texas. You name it. We run the gamut. I've been on the board of the National Storage Association. I've run a couple different state boards. We've gotten legislature passed, wrote a book on the space. I mean, you name it. We have touched every end of this business. We have bought, sold, built, owned, managed. I mean, storage is our lifeblood, and that is all we do. Super thrilled to have a team to support this dream of ours in this process. And we cover pretty much every California in the U.S. So we've run a wide array of seats in the space, and I've worn a ton of different hats. But 98% of my energy day in, day out is focused on the brokerage space.
This book right here. I knew it was somewhere. That's why my books fell, but I just found it.
I'm glad you got a copy sitting right there, Ian.
Yeah, I knew I had. As soon as you said, I was like, "Oh shit, he did write a book." But man, dude, so you guys are doing like deals literally all over the world. And I guess, a good way to kick it off. Normally we go through like a founder's story, but you covered it. Your family's been in this business for a long time. Let's talk about like the industry and the market where it is today and what you're seeing going on in self-storage, because it was a super hot asset class from like COVID, and then COVID stopped and everyone's like, oh, storage sucks. I'm out. I'm going back to what I'm normally doing. What are you seeing on in the marketplace right now?
Yeah, so it's cool. You know, my family's been through a ton of cycles. Like, this isn't our first rodeo. We've seen this before. And I think everyone in their head knew that the COVID wave could not last forever. We knew there'd be another side to it. You know, right now though, I think we saw this screeching halt come up in Q3, Q4 last year. We saw a bunch of back-to-back debt hikes. You know, people weren't able to get sub 4% debt anymore and buying 5-cap deals left and right. And the brakes were kind of stopped in the industry. You know, big groups weren't closing deals, small groups weren't closing deals. I mean, we kind of came to a screeching halt, all said and done. And that trickled over into the first quarter of this year. Everyone was waiting on rate hikes. We've all digested this new norm that is the current rate environment. We may not get a rate cut, until December, let alone maybe early next year. So I think everyone's just finally digested this, but it's taken almost a full year to accept this new environment that we're in. And, you know, now that we're in it, I think groups that are active in buying will be thankful they were in the next couple of years. If you can make a deal pencil in today's environment, there's a great opportunity to make some good coin. But also on the sell side, there is a life cycle of every deal. If you bought your deal right in the past couple of years, there are people looking to spend money and you know, move chips around and get things done. And I mean, you know, we've got over 40 active listings right now. We're closing just as much this year as we did last year. To be honest, I think we'll end up beating last year. So we're pretty thrilled about pace and volume in the market. And I think, look, there's always excuses to not do deals, but there's always people getting deals done. And we just prefer to be with the people who are getting deals done.
Have you seen cycles like this? And I mean, I'm assuming you're probably close, you know, around our age, give or take. So it's not like you can go back forever. But you know, studying self-storage, you know, and past trends. Is this a normal cycle? Are these cycles like for instance, like residential real estate? You know, if you look back 100 years, you see the decade cycles that kind of come and go. Some are interest rate wise, some's just, you know, development, supply and demand. Is storage kind of similar to that, would you say?
Very much so. I think we usually have softer rises and falls though than residential. We don't have these egregious, you know, peaks and valleys and booms and busts. But again, I remember my dad and I opened the doors of a facility we built for a client in April of 2008. Talk about one of the worst times ever to open a facility. Now, we picked a great location. We built good product. It took a little longer to lease up than we had initially projected. But again, we had built in the reserves to stomach that. You know, I tell people all the time, storage is a generational wealth tool, 2X, you know, hitting singles and doubles all day long. And if you treat it like that, you'll be just fine. I think where people get a little caught is when they treat it like the 10X get rich quick overnight, like pump and dump, you know, and people are like, oh, I saw all these people sell for sub 4 caps in 21. I'm going to do the same thing. It's like, well, no, let's treat it what this really is. And I think the people who are successful in this space long-term recognize it is what it is. And let's continue to do deals as such. So, you know, coming out of, I'd say 12 and 13, we started to see this rise in the storage industry. We started to see the rise in construction trends and spending trends. A couple PE entrants really picked up on this new shift in the space. You look back at the global financial crisis, storage was the only asset class that not only survived, but did really well during the GFC. And so there's this continued momentum in the space through 15, 16, 17, 18. You know, we had a weird debt market, but construction was still booming, pushed through 19. And then COVID was like someone threw a match on gas. I mean, it was just bananas. I've never seen that level of attention to the space and interest to the space. And I think it was good on the whole. I really do. We saw just kind of like a stamp of approval from the PE world, which I think was warranted. We were kind of considered the ugly industrial asset class for years. And now I think people have really looked at what it is and how successful the space can be. I think the only reason that people are caught up in their deals that they bought from the COVID era is either they got floating debt, which who the heck would have ever thought we would be in a position now versus where we were 4 years ago, or if people perpetually forecasted 10, 20% year-over-year rent increases. And for the first time in a while, we're seeing not only level growth, but some serious decline in street rates in some markets due to oversaturation. Now, it's a short-term issue. And again, those who buy deals right now and get them done will be thankful they did in a couple of years. But it is the current state of the environment. We have a lot of these oversaturated and oversupplied markets. But again, I really see it as such a short-term issue due to the hot growth trends in some of these areas.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what I would ask you there is like, there's a retraction in pricing, there's a retraction in growth, there's saturation, but has anyone addressed like the demand issues? I know there's a couple guys out there that we're friends with that talk about people moving and less people are moving, so that's why demand's down. I would say, COVID, people were working out of their houses and they were buying all kinds of toys, so that's maybe why demand's down. Is there any have you seen any studies in regards to the demand retraction in this space?
I think it's a little tough to pin down, but anecdotally, I think we can all agree when people are getting house loans sub 4%, migration was rampant. People were all over the place. COVID, you either, clearing out space for your kids to come home, or you're finally redoing that kitchen, or you're buying the toys, or you're building the lake house, or, whatever. I mean, there were a million reasons that people were migratory during COVID. And I think that fueled this, cheap rate environment. People are moving, people have time on their hands, people have money. And it was just kind of this perfect storm for one of the most wild storage markets we candidly have ever seen. So I think obviously a lot of this slowed, where people are golden handcuffed with those cheap loans. I mean, imagine people who are sub 3% loans who physically cannot afford to make those moves. Now, for a certain income class, well, they marry the house, they date the rate. They don't give a shit. They'd prefer to have the cheaper loan, but they'd rather buy the house they want. They eat the 6 or 7% loan they get nowadays, and they'll figure it out in a couple of years. But for the majority of America, they feel handcuffed to that house. And I think, sometimes, yeah, it probably doesn't make sense, but a lot of times they don't realize how much of an equity increase there is there. And it could be, redeployed in investments that more than make up for, their new increase in loan, or they get in a better market or a better house or a better neighborhood. So I think, again, we've held on to this current rate environment for so long that we're going to see people just kind of accept the new norm. It sucked in 22 and 23. We had all those like back-to-back hikes. People were like, this is terrible. I was sub 3, now I'm at 6, 7%. Well, now we've been in it long enough that people are like, all right, it is what it is. Let's just press forward. Let's move through this. So I think we're starting to see it loosen up. Buyers that haven't been active in a year are starting to put offers in. People are building right through this time. Ian, we had a couple groups last year that, independently each bought over 60 deals, which is a very busy storage season. So again, I think people who see the longevity of this industry are going to plow right through this environment, and people who get caught up in this debt environment are, I think just a little more short-term thinking on their horizon with the storage asset class.
And I'm guessing sellers are also now more realistic and educated of you're not selling these things for a premium, anymore, because nobody's buying them. Price this the right way, and you'll get offers, and you'll sell accordingly. But
correct. And
every asset class, residential, all types of commercial stuff, super low cap rates, super, this sell, because it's like, why not?
Yeah.
There's a lot of capital out there. There's a lot of liquidity out there. I mean, I can tell you firsthand on, the small balance commercial markets, there's very little capital out there right now for that type of stuff. I mean, and that really helps our private lending company, but we're super conservative on stuff. I'm not giving high leverage to folks, and they got to be the right person. So knowing that it's just hard to find. So, you have the ability, I guess, as a buyer, you're bankable and you have capital and you have experience to do a deal. I mean, these sellers don't have many other options to sell these things unless it's a very realistic price.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned that, because, let's say back in 21, we'd put a deal out, we'd get a dozen plus offers. I mean, it was just like printing offers. It was crazy. And then, last year we sold 34 transactions, 30 of which closed before August 1st, just to show you how much that market really slowed down. second half of last year.
Wow.
But our listing to close price ratio was 96%. So we lost out on a lot of deals where I think sellers were distracted by the shiny object pricing. Somebody was like, oh yeah, we can get you a 4 capitals deal. The sellers are still thinking like it's 21. And then they call me 12, 18 months later and like, yeah, it never happened. Like, we're ready to sell now. We should have gone with your price. And that's why, like, look, my family's been in this space forever. This is my name on the door. Like, this is what we do. And I tell people, I was like, I don't care if I sell your deal in 6 weeks or 6 years. It literally makes no difference to me. I want to tell you what your deal's worth. And if you want to sell it, I'm here to help you. But I could just write $100 million on a valuation, tell you it's what it is, but I'd be full of shit. So we really try and stick to like what we know, and we try and really stay close. I'm like, look, if you want to sell your asset, this is what it's worth. And now, like you said, in this environment, I think a lot of sellers have just, realized that like, hey, this is the new norm. This is where the pricing is, but there's still a ton of value for them to be created. We have clients that bought deals in 2019, 2020, for, low millions. Now they're worth 2.5 or 3. Yeah, they might have been able to sell it for $4 million at the peak of the market, but they're still making $2 million. So it's like, let's not step over dollars to chase pennies here. Let's be intelligent. You're still making a shit ton of money. And that's what I think our education has been the last 18 months. Is like, look, my dad always told me growing up, he's like, pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. Yep. He's like, be a pig. He's like, just take the win, can't go broke taking a profit, recycle the capital, move on to the next deal. And so I think for a lot of these people who may have bought in 2021, it's like, yeah, we can still get you out and you can still make some money. That's great. Like, I don't think you should be sad about making a little money. And then we go into the next deal and then we can apply what we learned with the first one and move on. And so I think that's a lot of our education right now, Jason. I love to hear, because from your end too, that lower tier cap stack is hard to come by. That Super 1 to 2 million is near impossible to get good debt on. And I think those syndicated deals in that small price tag range are the ones that are hardest to move.
Yeah, I think you're right. I want to piggyback on a few things that you just discussed, but real quick, circling back on something. Is there an argument that if the residential real estate market is actually bad or declining, that storage actually is more helpful? Storage could actually be a better asset class for the simple reason of people are downsizing and they need cheaper additional space for their goods. Or, there might not be lots of capital out there. People aren't buying tons and tons of stuff, but all of a sudden they're like, I can't afford my house anymore. So now I got to go rent an apartment, or I got to go downsize to a cheaper house. And, I can just pay the $100 a month and have a 10 by 10 storage facility.
Or I can move into a storage unit. I mean, it's common right now. It's common right now. There's people that chase around depending where you are. It happens. I've heard a lot of people say, hey, what do you do when someone moves into your unit? I say, yeah, throw them out. But it's happening right now because of the affordability issue. And it's a legit concern that you need to pay attention to.
I mean, affordability, we don't even have a realized affordability issue yet. We know we have an affordability issue, but it's not realized at this point.
Case, I think that's like global financial crisis again. Like, people lost their asses. They lost everything. Rent instead of own, sell the big house, pack up their shit. Again, storage thrived. And then COVID, again, like, for those that were blessed to have work from home or redoing their homes or whatever, storage did well. But think about the number of people that lost their jobs or had to move for the new job or had their kids come home and had to put their stuff in storage. I mean, there were so many forcing factors to put in storage too. So I would agree. I mean, a bad economy is good for storage, period. Like, it forces the hand, and it's, you go back to the D's, death, divorce, downsize. Like, unfortunately, these life circumstances bode well for the storage space. But I always tell people, I'm like, thankfully we have an asset class that can aid people in these times of need. Like, I'd rather someone not come to me when they need that, but I don't think people drive by a storage facility like, man, you know what? That's a really good looking storage facility. I want to spend my Saturday moving all the shit out of my house and put it there because that is such a good looking site. Like, no one looks forward to that process. So, it's a reality that we're in. We provide a service, and a damn good one, that is needed in certain times. So, look, it's a real testament to team members who run these properties, people who do them the right way, that we're able to provide that service for those customers. But yeah, I mean, there's a direct correlation, I would say, between a good and a bad economy in the storage space.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. You bring up an interesting point. It's kind of a two-folded question. You said most people aren't driving by going, "Oh, look at that sexy storage facility. I'm going to go move my stuff in there because it's fun." What do you think about the legacy product versus the new build stuff? And if you had to get in today, what would you choose? Would you choose legacy product, or would you go out and build something? And I know your family's business was building storage, so might be a little unfair, but it is a valid question. So
I'll tell you, great question. And it's funny you mention that, because although we grew up building sites, all that my brother and our family capital has done since then is acquired legacy properties. We love legacy properties. And I tell people all the time, for first entrance, for a certain cap stack, like, legacy is the way to go. There is in-place income you can capitalize on. There's usually a lower barrier to entry. You can buy the more tertiary core plus mom and pop product. There's some room to move the needle. Like, I love the legacy property. I don't know why there's been this huge shift. I mean, I get it. You spend 20 million building a site. You think you can sell it to C of over 30. Great. You build 100-something thousand Class A, and there's a certain cap stack for that. But I would say for the average investor, the small stack fund or family office, I love the legacy product. And some of the biggest brands in the industry have been built off of solely legacy product acquisitions. Look at KO Storage, look at 10 Fed, look at Merritt Hill Capital. Like, a lot of those acquisitions they do are legacy product, and they have 200 plus locations each. So for certain builders, they love building, and they love, I think, putting their name on the balance sheet and building the, like you said, the $20-30 million Class A and riding that wave. And they've got a product and a mindset for that. And there's certain products that's awesome. But again, I would argue the majority of people in the space, when it comes to generational wealth conservation and really looking to do that 1.5, 2x every 5 to 7 years and hitting a 15 to 20% IRR, there's no better place to do it than the legacy product.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And, there has been a big push for people going out and building, but I would also agree with you that, some of these guys were contract building for the REITs, more or less merchant building, right? Like, they were going out, taking all the risk and praying God that the REITs would pick them up. And, there's probably a fine line of what makes sense and what doesn't, and what your expertise is. But yeah, there is something to be said about legacy product that you can expand on, that you can continue to value add, pick up from someone else that's already done, like, part of the value add. You just need to manage it away, right? Like, our job is to come in here and, I remember talking to the guys from KO. It was actually a fun conversation. He's like, everybody has a place in their food chain, and my place in the food chain is to take the really crappy stuff, get it to a point, and get really good deals, get it to a point, and then their point is from my point to the next exit, and really manage it away. It's the same thing we've done on other commercial properties. So it's interesting.
I love that you say that, Ian, because we have helped a number of groups. Like, I'll give a perfect example. There was a piece of dirt in North Carolina. We helped the original buyer buy it and entitle it. Then we sold it to the group who built it. Then they sold it at C of O to another group. And then when they got it like half leased up, we sold it again to a group who wanted to have more stabilized product. Every single one of those groups made money along the way. There is a different fish in the food chain that loves that product type. And I think when people recognize where that niche is for them in the space, like, it's a good relationship that you can continue to recycle on year over year. And it's funny because, you mentioned KO and I've worked with other groups similarly. Buyers are like, well, why are they leaving the meat on the bone? I'm like, look, they've hit their metric that needs to be hit. They don't want to just sell you something that's fully stabilized. There's nothing for you to capitalize on. Let's create some opportunity for the next buyer. And then, like you said, everyone in the food chain has been fed properly. And it works. And it's like, why reinvent the wheel? We've seen that work time and time again. And we've seen monstrous companies built off that. So I think sometimes people are weary, and it's something that's really cool about the storage space. And Jason, I'd love to hear kind of your expertise from your side of things, dealing with so many other asset classes, but storage is such an open platform. It's crazy. Like, everyone is very open book, super transparent. I have just fallen in love with the space. Like, I have clients that are direct competitors that, they check in on one another. They see how things are going. Like, I just feel like it's a very unique space in that regard.
Yeah, well, before Jason gets back on that one, I do have one follow-up question: is how do you manage all that? Because Jason has the same problem, right? Like, because he has capital investors, and this kind of goes all together. And you both can answer this, but John, what I would ask you is, like, how do you manage your relationships from a broker standpoint? Of, like, I know you're taking everything to market at some point, but we all know deals get closed behind doors too. How do you manage? How do you identify what groups are the right group for the right type of product to say, hey, like, this is good for you. Like, let's get you over the hump here. Like, how do you manage that relationship? Because you guys got a massive Rolodex.
Yeah,
of people
so
that are
it's a
willing to
great
buy and
question.
sell.
And I think it's honestly just time in the space and deals we've transacted and time spent with clients. Like, for instance, I know if a certain buyer wants a certain product in a certain city, I've got them dog-eared that if anything ever comes up, like, they've, screamed my ear off till I'm bleeding that they want that in that market. And we've got buyers for that in every market. And there's certain product types. But I also track, like, who's closing deals in today's environment, who's capable of closing deals in today's environment, who's bullish on moving on certain product types, who's not scared of, insurance or property taxes in these states, who wants to get out of those states, who wants to, be bullish in this new development because this new plant's going in or this and that. I mean, it's our CRM platform has been loaded to the gills over the past, 2+ decades of just data. And my time, especially, having started the company and grown to where it is, my time is spent on the phone talking to people like you, Ian, every day who run portfolios. I mean, I very high level touch the top 100, 200 operators once a month. That's where my time is spent. I need to know who's moving and shaking. And so that when my team, we have appropriate deals, I know who wants them and who doesn't. And that's really, I think, the skill set that we've cultivated over the years is being able to identify the right buyer for the right product type.
Yeah. No, I get it. What would you tell a buyer that maybe entered this space 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, kind of dabbled with a bunch of stuff, wasn't sure what type of asset classes they wanted? They probably got into the smaller type of stuff because that's, what made sense. And, leased everything up. They have nice facilities. And then, COVID, market trends, low interest rate environments have skyrocketed their portfolio, but they look at themselves as a legacy owner, right? Because I think a lot of commercial real estate investors, especially starting out, thinks like, I'm never selling this property. I'm a legacy owner and I want to be in this forever. Like, I know my take on, like, what I think on it. Like, I'm curious on your end. Let's say it goes up 3x, 4x, 5x, maybe even 10x, which isn't natural, right? Nor, like you said, when you started out, 1 to 2x. Is it time to sell and upgrade to a better asset class? Does it make sense? It's like, hey, let's just ride this thing out and, because why not? It's
so
already
selfishly, look, this is what I tell people all the time. If you bought anything pre-COVID, it's worth a shit ton more now than it was when you bought it, period. Like, if you bought anything 2019 earlier, you're still in a great spot. Yeah, you may have missed the peak of peaks, but no one's perfect. Like, and I think it comes down to, Jason, a couple things. It's like, look, what's your time horizon, what's your cap stack, and what's your family situation like? We have a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm going to give it to my kids. I'm like, your kids don't fucking want this. Like, just being honest, like, your one kid's an attorney in Richmond, the other one works for the SEC in New York, and the other one, like, is a preschool teacher in LA. They don't want to move back to BFE, Kentucky to run your property. Like, and then I have the conversation too. I'm like, if you get hit by a bus, is your husband or wife, your remaining spouse, going to be able to run this? Do they want to run this? And so, we have a lot of education about, like, look, I hear you, but I don't think you've had this conversation with the rest of your family yet as far as what your expectations are beyond this. And then 2, for cap stack and partner situations, things like that, it's like, look, I know you wanted to hit a 3x your assets, you can make a 2x right now if we sell. Like your IRR is not going to get, any better if we hold it for 5 more years and maybe you make an extra $500,000.
That's
like,
right.
Let's recycle the capital. You tell a story to your investors. You give them a great return. Let's go do it again, but do it better this time. Learned from this experience. So I think right now, I always tell people, again, if there's an opportunity to clear chips and recycle capital and hit your hurdles, let's go do it. Like, why sit longer? And I even went through this recently with selling my house in North Carolina. We, we could probably sit on it for another, 10 years and make a little extra coin, but we're going to 4x our equity in 3 years. Like, I can't replicate that again. So
That's right.
Let's clear those chips, be thankful for the opportunity, and move on.
And potentially get yourself into the next asset class higher, a better opportunity, higher cash flow. I mean, I look at it like this. I think the easiest way to look at it, at least the way my brain works, is rate of return you're currently getting versus the amount of equity that you have. And if you have, let's say, like $1 million worth of equity that you could potentially tap, and you're making like whatever $50,000 a year on that facility, and you're making whatever 4 or 5%, it's kind of like, that's not all that great for an active investment. And there's too many real estate investors, especially, I don't know, at least in our market, like there's too many of them that just don't see that. It's like, yeah, but I'm not doing much. I'm getting this return. I'm getting a few $1,000s a month. It's like, yeah, but you got $100,000. You have
because they give up. They give up. They don't want to go back to the market. They don't want to go do it again. It's hard to get them cash.
Makes zero sense to me.
It makes zero sense, but it's also hard to go do it and replicate it again if you're not in it every day and you've gotten lazy, right?
Correct. And I think we run up against that a lot, Ian. The 30-year owner operator, he's like, yeah, I make $200,000 a year. It's fine. I'm like, you should be making $400,000 a year at this.
That's right.
Like, yeah, but I don't have to do anything. And I'm like, but on paper, you're going to make $4 million. So like, what would I do though? And I'm like, I can think of a lot of things, but
nothing. You could passively invest it into something else and make the same amount of return and have zero risk and zero headache and zero nothing.
And we have that conversation every day, Jason. And I think a lot of the time too, what we've done with a lot of clients is consolidation and recycling of capital. So let's say you own like 10 class B or C products and you're stressed to the gills managing it. Like you said, your dollar return per each side is minimal. And it's like, hey, let's sell these, take that capital, and then go buy or build 1 or 2 beautiful class A stores or 2 or 3 class B plus products. Like, let's go buy those and de-stress your life, give you back your time, and make the same, if not more money. And then you've set yourself up for another 2x exit in 5 years with bigger and better product. So it's this constant stepping stone of growing that portfolio and leveraging that equity to do so.
Yep. And de-risking the portfolio from hurricanes or markets that, you understand, but you at a macro level, but maybe not a micro level. I mean, just to be transparent and honest, so everyone knows, is we've listed pieces of our portfolio with John and Matt, who we forgot to invite, but we'll have them on another time. I am about to go have lunch with him, but we've listed with them just because it's the exact same conversation. It's like, hey, de-risk, de-leverage. We can redeploy the capital into new and better assets that are closer to home. We don't have to get on a plane. We don't have to force our employees to be away from home. There's so many factors. And it's like, yeah, and it was talking to you and the KO guys and Jason barking in my ear is one of our capital investors all the time. It's like, so what? We made money. Keep it moving. I was like, dude, you know what? You're right. Keep it moving. And so that's where we're at. So we're excited to see what happens with you guys. And this is my shameless plug for your company. But I'm excited to work with you guys. It's been a fun process and interested to see what the market does. And it's fun, but it's also fun to get real-time data on the sell side to be like, man, okay, this is what's going on. Maybe I should be looking for X, Y, and Z in these opportunities in these areas, or I know what demand is. I know how many people are trying to bid on this. It's like, okay, well, I understand that. I need to be quicker, or I have more time, or I need to have all these things in order. I think actually being on the seller side opens your eyes to what it is to be a buyer on the other side too. So
correct, Ian. You hit the nail on the head. And look, as we've talked about, you're in the Northeast with product and the Bible Belt and vice versa. Like, we have a lot of clients when they're building their portfolios, they get acquisitions, throughout, different markets and this and that. And then they consolidate and they recycle. And for instance, like we have a really big client that's based out of Cleveland. They love Cleveland. Like that is their jam. I would argue 90% of America probably doesn't really want to buy product in Cleveland, but that's where the family office is based. They love it. They know it. And so when people are exiting assets around Cleveland, it is a perfect fit for that group. And so again, there's groups that love certain pockets, and there's groups that love the Bible Belt. There's groups that love the Gulf Coast. There's groups that love, small town Mississippi and Kentucky and Arkansas and all this. So there are buyers and owners and product types for every group. And like I got another client. He owns almost 500,000 square feet in BFE, Arkansas, but that's his jam, and he's been very successful off that. And so what may not fit for you or another group may be a perfect fit for, like you said, that next fish in the chain looking to grow in that area. So I think it's always a great process to explore and exit. You never know what you're going to go through. Like you said, you may learn something along the way. You may see through the lens of a buyer, but it provides you real-time data for your portfolio, provides you an opportunity to consolidate, recycle capital, and move on, and then do it even better the next time. And I think we can all agree, our first deal we all ever bought, whether it was a home or a storage facility or whatever it was, we would be mortified to probably share what that looked like compared to where we are now. I mean, we have all jumped by leaps and bounds. So I think, look, we're all striving to be better every day, and we were able to apply what we've learned with each new deal we do.
Yeah, no, that's 100% right. And it's, I think it really takes a long time to realize that, there's an ego play to say, hey, you want to be a legacy owner, but then if you really are about creating that generational wealth, well, you have a fiduciary duty, not only for your personal family capital in your own family office, but everybody else that's invested with you. Keep that ball rolling. Yeah, there will be a piece of product that comes up that, yes, this is the legacy asset, boys. We're holding on to it for a very long period of time. But there's also other stuff that says, you know what, we can move, shake. Let's keep it moving and keep it rolling. We're all trying to get Boardwalk Place on the Monopoly board, right? Like, how do we get there and move and jockey for that position? So,
well, Ian, you nailed it. I use this phrase often with clients who have big portfolios. Like, let's prune the portfolio. The stuff that may not fit your geographical footprint, or the one asset that maybe it's too small or too big, or maybe you've had constant manager issues there, or maybe if it just isn't fitting the rest of the box. Let's prune it because it might fit for someone else. And then again, recycle the capital closer to home or closer to the product type you like. Like for instance, we had a client, they were doing a ton of acquisitions, and then they did their first development and realized they love development. Well, guess what? We just started one-off selling the acquisitions so they could recycle the capital. Like, there is a buyer and seller for every product type. So I love that people have that mentality. Look, the legacy stuff is great when you've got like $100 million put to work. Go for it. I'm a big believer of that. I have a couple clients in that category. They will never sell. They're like Public and U-Haul, and that's great. But I would argue for everyone else, there's a price and a time for everything. And if there's an opportunity to recycle chips and move on and put yourself in a better position, by all means do it.
That's a really good explanation of that. I agree with that. I agree with that in almost any business, not just storage. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, it's, as folks get super wealthy, there's a preservation of capital stage that you're in, and most people aren't necessarily in that. Most people are still in kind of the growth phase. And, if your storage facilities have skyrocketed in value, you might not see that exact same skyrocket in the future. They might be a little bit more stagnant. And again, slow and steady could still win the race. Like, that's okay. But like, it's definitely something to consider. John, I think this has been a super valuable conversation for everybody. The best part about it is you have good perspective on all sides of the industry. So many storage investors that, we do loans for, or Ian talks about, that I'm friendly with as well. They know they're kind of one niche that they do. They're one market that they're in. You're very well versed in lots of different markets, and, the bigger stuff, the smaller stuff. So I think it's very good perspective. One thing we like to ask all of everyone we interview is a book or podcast that they really, really enjoy. Maybe it's something you're reading right now, or maybe it's something that you've listened to or read in the past that you think, all of our listeners can get value from.
Book, absolutely 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel is like one of my favorite books of all time. I think everyone should read that, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you're out on your own. Like, that creation point, that inflection point, that first step, and kind of what we've seen work and repeat over time is absolutely legendary, especially from someone as wildly successful as Peter Thiel. That is a great one. And Atomic Habits. That is a no-brainer for those of us who are out on our own, especially, and a lot of either work from home or travel or remote or kind of creating your own systems and process. Atomic Habits would be a high recommendation.
Yeah, both good books. Oh, actually, it's a lie. I only know Atomic Habits. I got to put 0 to 1 on the I put 0 to 1 on the list of things to read. So that will be interesting. John, where's the best place people can find you on the internet? They want to get a facility value. They want to learn. I mean, I know you're willing to help people. They want to say, hey, I want to buy my first facility. What you got? Where can they find you on the interwebs?
Yep. LindseySelfStorageGroup.com. I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, everything. John Charles Lindsey, easy to find me. You can email me, john@LindseySelfStorageGroup.com. Go on our website, get a free valuation. We update a lot of our clients' valuations quarterly, even if they're not planning on selling for 3 to 5 years. We love just giving barometers, showing people where they are on the market, what's happening. We're happy to do it. We've got a team to do so. We've got market data for pretty much anywhere in the country. So if people need rates, sales comps, they want introductions to lenders or whatever they need, like, we are happy to do it. Vendors, I mean, shit, this is all we've done for the past 50 years. So we're here to help. I've loved being in this industry. It has been everything for my family. It has given me everything I have today. So happy to give back and excited to see everyone continue to thrive in this space.
Yeah. And it's Lindsey with an E.
That's correct.
I'm an idiot. So
Yes.
I found out how to misspell it.
It's okay. I forgive you. Maybe one day if I'm lucky, I can have a beard like you and the infinite wisdom that comes with it.
Yeah, we'll see. But I don't know. You dropped a ton of nuggets. We appreciate you. Guys, if you want to reach out, John's very will communicate. If it's not one of him, it's one of his brokers. The team's badass. They've been helpful. And as he said, it was a 6-month conversation before we even decided to list, hey, value. Like, let's talk about how we can do X, Y, and Z to make this sale even better. So everything he says is 100% true. And more importantly, guys, if you got any value out of this, please let's show John the love and share this. We don't care about the subscribes or the comments or any of that. Just share it. Someone's going to get value out of this, and we will catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks, dude.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time, thank you for tuning in.